Middle Path Radio, your number one online Islamic talk station.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen, wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya al-mursaleen, nabiyina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een, amma ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my dearest brothers and sisters, and welcome to the second part of a four-part episode series on the life and legacy of Abu Bakr al-Siddeeq radiyallahu ta'ala. Last week we spoke a bit about his background and his life before Islam. We said his name was what? What do we say his name was? Abdullah, the son of Uthman. Very good, well remembered. The son of Uthman. And we said that before Islam, Abu Bakr al-Siddeeq was already a formidable person in the eyes of his community. Because Abu Bakr al-Siddeeq, he was from the Quraysh, the tribe, the most elite tribe in the whole of the Arabian Peninsula. And he was from a sub-tribe. Anyone remember the name of the sub-tribe? Banu Taym. Banu Taym. Unlike the Prophet ﷺ, who was from Banu Hashim, which was the most prestigious sub-tribe in the whole of Arabia. He was loved by the people before Islam. And this was mentioned by Ibn Athir in his book. He said that the Quraysh, they loved Abu Bakr al-Siddeeq radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. And whatever he would say, they would take his word. And those that were with Abu Bakr, they would also look up to those people. And those that were against Abu Bakr, they would look down on those people. And one of the reasons why they loved him so much is because he was a scholar of what they call ilm al-ansab, science of genealogy. And one of the interesting things Ibn Hajar mentioned is that though he was a scholar of genealogy, which means that he knows about everybody's family, basically. As far as your family goes back, he knows about your family, which means he knows about your history. Now imagine you had knowledge about everyone's family and their history and where they go back to and the ins and outs of their community. It makes you a person who could destroy other people's reputation, isn't it? You could say, what are you talking about? I know what your grandfather did back in the day and what his son did back in the day as well. But the thing is, Abu Bakr al-Siddeeq, Ibn Hajar mentioned, he never used to use his knowledge of genealogy to defame other people. Never. And that is why when the Prophet ﷺ used to go to do da'wah to foreign tribes, he would take Abu Bakr with him for one of these reasons, because he knew about this tribe. He could tell them that this is their customs, these are their traditions, and these are their notable people. So this is one of the reasons anyhow. Now, this lesson will be dedicated to speaking a bit about his family and also when he embraced Islam and some of what happened during the Meccan era, those 13 years that the Prophet ﷺ was in Mecca. Now as for his family, he had 4 wives. In total he had 4 wives. The first wife, Qutayla bint Abdul Uzza, she was divorced in Jahiliyyah, she never became Muslim. The second, third and fourth wife is Ruman, Asma bint Umays and Habiba bint Kharija. From these wives, he had 6 children. He had 3 boys and he had 3 girls. Anyone know the names of these sons of Abu Bakr al-Siddeeq? Anyone know any of them? Abdul Rahman, very good. Any other names? Abdul Rahman. No one else? You gonna say? Muhammad and Abdullah. Yeah. The first of them was Muhammad, then Abdullah, then Abdul Rahman. And then he had 3 girls as well. Obviously, the most famous of them was Aisha radiyallahu ta'ala anha. And who else? Asma. Yeah. Asma radiyallahu ta'ala was also very famous. One of the one of his wives was named Asma bint Umays, and he had a daughter and he named her Asma as well. So don't get confused between that. And the third daughter was Kulthum. Now something interesting about his wife, Asma bint Umays radiyallahu anha, she was, subhanAllah, she has a very amazing biography. One of the amazing things about her is that before marrying Abu Bakr al-Siddeeq, she was married to, anyone know? Ja'far. Yeah, Ja'far ibn Abi Talib. And after the marriage of Abu Bakr al-Siddeeq, and he passes away, then she marries another notable companion who is, anyone know? She marries Ali radiallahu ta'ala. Yeah. So she was the one lady, one Muslim, one female companion who married two of the Khalifas. She was married to Abu Bakr al-Siddeeq, and she was also married to Ali radiallahu ta'ala. Now, some interesting things about his children. Muhammad. Yeah, his son Muhammad, though he embraced Islam towards the end of his life, many scholars of history said that he, what we would call, went off the rails. And he was one of those, which is mentioned by Suyuti as well, who joined the rebels where they wanted to assassinate Uthman ibn Affan radiallahu ta'ala. And it is said that he was also part of the group that entered into the house of Uthman when they wanted to assassinate him. But as Suyuti mentioned, that when Muhammad, the son of Abu Bakr, entered into the home of Uthman, he saw Uthman, Uthman saw him, and he said to him, "What would your father say if he knew you were here doing this?" And out of embarrassment, Muhammad, he turned away and he went back, and he didn't partake in the assassination of Uthman radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Now, one interesting lesson we can learn from that is that this is Abu Bakr, the greatest human being after the prophets. And we are hearing that one of his sons turned out to be not so good, at least for some part of his life. Anyone know of a prophet of Allah whose sons, at some point, they were also off the rails? They weren't very good Muslims. In the Quran, Allah tells us about them. Yaqub alayhi salam. Yes, Yaqub. At one point, 10 or 9 of his sons were plotting and scheming to kill one of their brothers, right? And they were willing to lie to their father and so on and so forth. So what does that teach us? If the son of Abu Bakr, Muhammad, at one point was off the rails, then it shows us that sometimes you can't say if the children of somebody is messed up, it means that mom and dad are messed up too, isn't it? And it shows us that it doesn't matter how religious you are as parents and how good the upbringing you may give to your children, it doesn't guarantee that your children will also be righteous and religious. And we need to appreciate that, because sometimes we have fantastic parents, really good parents. They give great upbringing to their children, but what do you know? Some of their children, maybe even all of them, they grow up to be not that righteous, not that great. And so we shouldn't point the finger at the children and say, oh, the problem must be with mom and dad. Yeah, we shouldn't do that. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But what I'm saying is that you shouldn't necessarily say the children are messed up, therefore mom and dad are not doing a good job. Yeah, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Abdul Rahman, the other son of Abu Bakr al-Siddeeq, he embraced Islam quite late on. Okay, so much so that during the battle of Badr, he was on the side of the Quraysh fighting against the Muslims. And so there's a beautiful narration, I read it to you here. أن عبد الرحمن بن أبي بكر الصديق رضي الله تعالى عنهما كان يوم بدر مع المشركين. Abd al-Rahman, it is said, this is about when he was on the side of the mushrikeen on the day of Badr. فلما أسلم, when he became a Muslim and embraced Islam, قال لأبيه, he goes to his father and he says the following: لقد أهدفت لي يوم بدر. He goes that I came in close proximity of you on the day of Badr. فَصَرَفْتُ عَنْكَ وَلَمْ أَقْتُلَكَ. And so I turned away and I didn't want to kill you. Now look what Abu Bakr says. فقال أبو بكر رضي الله تعالى عنه لكنك لو أهدفت لي لم أنصرف عنك. He said, had it been the case that I was aware that you came in close proximity of me, I would never have turned away. This is a conversation between a father and son. And the son is telling his father, you know what, when I was messed up and I was a disbeliever and I was at war with you, with the disbelievers, you know, because you're my father, I didn't want to fight you. And what does dad say? He says, Dad, says to son, if it was the other way around and I saw you coming towards me on the side of the disbelievers, then just know I wouldn't have turned away from you. The next part is about his embracing of Islam. Some things you need to appreciate before you can hear about how he embraced Islam. The first point, we've already mentioned that he was from the Quraysh, a notable person loved by the people. Yeah, so he's already very popular in the eyes of his community. Now, does that make a real difference to know that? It does. Because he's going to make a decision which is going to put his whole reputation on the line. Yeah. So he's not just a nobody, he's a somebody. Secondly, I said he was loved by the people. Thirdly, he was very well off. Did anyone remember last I mentioned how much wealth it is said Abu Bakr had when he embraced Islam, before he embraced Islam? Anyone remember? 40,000. Yeah. Silver coins, dirham. However, I mentioned this last time, the equivalency of 40,000 dirhams in our times is around £500,000, right? However, there is also another narration as Suyuti brings in Tarikh al-Khulafa, which says that it wasn't 40,000 dirhams, it was 40,000 dinars, which makes it jump from 500,000 to 500 million. Just imagine. If that narration is correct, Abu Bakr before Islam was like almost a billionaire, because what you can buy with 500 million in our days is a lot less than what you can buy with 40,000 gold coins in those days. Okay? Which really makes you think like how much of a sacrifice Abu Bakr was making when he accepted Islam, isn't it? Super rich. And anyone remember how much he had when he arrived at Medina? 5,000. So he gave away 35,000 out of a total of 40 for the sake of Allah and His Messenger. Amazing, isn't it? And later on, the Prophet ﷺ will say in a beautiful narration that مَا نَفَعَنِي مَالٌ قَطٌّ كَمَالِ أَبِي بَكْرٍ. He'd say in the presence of other people, speaking proudly of Abu Bakr, when Abu Bakr is next to him, no wealth ever benefited me in any way, shape or form in the way that the wealth of Abu Bakr benefited me. And Abu Bakr al-Siddeeq, he starts to cry when he hears that praise. And he says, beautiful words, he says, what is it? My wealth and myself, do they not belong to you, Ya Rasulullah? He says, my soul and my wealth, doesn't it belong to you? And it's amazing how beautiful. And it is said, Ibn al-Jawzi rahimahullah mentioned his tafsir of Surah Al-Layl, verse number 17 and 18, where Allah says, وَسَيُجَنَّبُهَا الْأَتْقَى الَّذِي يُؤْتِي مَالَهُ يَتَزَكَّى. Ahsant, يَتَزَكَّى. These verses where Allah says, as for the pious person, atqa, the one who has a lot of taqwa, then he will be far removed from it, meaning he will be far away from Jahannam. May Allah make us of those people. Why? Because he gave his wealth yatazakka, in order to purify himself. Ibn Jawzi said there is an agreement amongst the scholars of tafsir. This was revealed referring to Abu Bakr al-Siddeeq radiyallahu anhu. Yeah, it's amazing. In the Quran, he's been praised specifically for his ability to sacrifice his money for the sake of Allah. And that really does teach us how much Allah loves when we spend money for Allah's religion. And we have to really appreciate that, because sometimes we think about money and spending for the sake of Islam as only money giving to masjids or madrasas or orphanage and so on and so forth. But spending for Allah's religion is much more than that. Because there were no masjids being built in Makkah, were there? There wasn't, was there? So what was the money being spent on? Freeing slaves, okay. What else? In Makkah, there was no jihad. So where did the money go? We mentioned freeing slaves, yes. What else? Da'wah. Who said that? Very good. See, trying to propagate the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Money was spent, in the equivalent of our time, basically marketing and promoting Islam in the way that the people would understand and appreciate. Thousands, millions of pounds, And in our times, I've mentioned this before as well, that because Islam is under attack and because of the rise of Islamophobia, more needs to be done to show the real message of Islam to non-Muslims. And also another niche, a unique opportunity for us to spend in Allah's religion is to protect the leaders of Islam. Because we are living in times where the leaders of Islam are being defamed and attacked. And you have to appreciate what happens to a man who is a professional, he has a job, children, when in the paper the headline reads, so-called radical preacher does X, Y and Z. What happens to his life, you have to appreciate. You see, the next day, imagine if he's a doctor. And this has happened to brothers that are doctors. He comes to work, everyone's read the paper, everyone's read the headline and seen his picture. This guy is an extremist, a radical, he's a terrorist. He comes to work, everyone's looking at him funny. Everyone's looking at him, he's talking under hushed tones. Here he is, what he's doing, how come he's come to work? You're none the wiser. Now it's time for the meeting. You sit around the table just like every day. And now you're discussing maybe a patient who needs some medicine or some treatment, and they're discussing what's the best way forward, and you put forward your professional opinion. And everyone turns to each other and gives that look. It's the crazy guy. Your opinion is no longer valued anymore. People don't see you as that person anymore. They see you as a person who they don't want to know anymore. You become what they call toxic. This is what defamation does to people. And now what is this brother who has spent his life calling you all to Islam going to do? He needs to have a court case, a defamation case brought against the newspapers, isn't it? They need to retract this. They have to say this is absolutely false allegations. But what do you know? The papers are relying and banking on the fact that this person hasn't got the money to take us to task. And so we can walk all over him. And so this represents a new opportunity for us Muslims to say, you know what? Our people that we rely upon to teach us Islam are being attacked left, right and center. We need to support them. We need to come together to support them. And this is, if you like, the sacrifices that were being made in the time of Bakr al-Siddeeq. And look at the Prophet, how he praised him. How he praised him, and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala praised him in the Quran as well, just because of his spending of money. As for his becoming Islam, it is said, there's a narration of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He says that I never called anyone to Islam except that they experience kabwa, taraddud wa nadhar, except that person experienced a moment of stalling, hesitating and deliberating, except for Abu Bakr al-Siddeeq. When I invited him to Islam, he embraced it immediately. And Al-Bayhaqi mentioned some reasons why Abu Bakr was so inclined to accept Islam as soon as the message came. He said one of the reasons is because he was the very close friend of the Prophet ﷺ even before prophecy. He knew him, i.e. he used to speak to him. He knew the kind of things he would think about, the ideas and thoughts he would have, because the Prophet ﷺ was upon the fitrah before the revelation came. And secondly, he said one of the other reasons why he embraced Islam so quickly is because he saw the signs of prophecy coming from the Prophet ﷺ. Some strange things would happen to the Prophet ﷺ before he became a prophet. So those things he witnessed and knew about, and that's why when the call came, he embraced it straight away. However, was he the first person to embrace Islam? Was he the first person to embrace Islam? Here, the scholars of Islam, As-Suyuti mentioned Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah ta'ala, had the following view. He said that as for the first man to embrace Islam, it was Abu Bakr, the first Rajul. As for the first woman, it was Khadija radiyallahu ta'ala anha. As for the first child, it was Ali radiyallahu ta'ala. Yes, you remember that one, mashallah. Ali radiyallahu ta'ala. This was the opinion of Abu Hanifa rahimahullah. Ibn Kathir rahimahullah has a different view. He said that the first people to embrace Islam were the family of the Prophet, in particular Khadija and Zayd, and he mentioned Ali, and also Waraqa. The uncle of the Prophet, the uncle of Khadija radiyallahu ta'ala anha. He said they were the first to embrace Islam, and then from the outside it was Abu Bakr al-Siddeeq radiyallahu ta'ala. Whether it's this or this, at the end of the day, it is said that he was the first man to embrace Islam. He was the first man to embrace Islam. Now, so there's some narrations here. Abu Sa'id al-Khudri radiyallahu ta'ala later on says to Abu Bakr, are you not the first of us to embrace Islam? Ali radiyallahu ta'ala would also say the first to accept Islam from the men was Abu Bakr, and Zayd al-Arqam radiyallahu ta'ala also said the first to pray alongside the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was Abu Bakr al-Siddeeq radiyallahu ta'ala. Now there's a story here which I want to share with you, which basically brings together what we've learned so far. Something about the personality of Bakr, something about his sacrifice, and also about how the Prophet ﷺ valued his contribution to Islam in the Meccan era. This hadith is mentioned in Sahih al-Bukhari, and it is reported on the authority of Abu Darda. He said that one day Abu Bakr al-Siddeeq comes frantically into the masjid, such that he is holding up his thawb high above, exposing his knee. So he comes in frantically, and the Prophet ﷺ says, "Amma sahibukum faqad ghamar." He says, as for your companion, he's clearly distressed. Now other narrations show us what has happened behind the scenes. What happened is, he was with Umar al-Khattab, and they were together, and they had an argument, a falling out, and Abu Bakr as-Siddeeq said something harsh to Umar. He said something harsh to Umar, and he walks away. And then what happens is, Abu Bakr says that I began to regret being harsh with Umar and saying what I said. And so I went back to Umar, to his house. I knocked on his door, and he answered it. And I said, "Will you forgive me?" Umar refused, and he shut the door in my face. Abu Bakr becomes even more worried. And then he comes into the masjid, and this is where the narration begins. He's in a frantic state, and he comes to the Prophet and he says, "Something happened between me and the son of Al-Khattab." He's talking about Umar. And he refused to forgive me. He refused to forgive me. Look at this. He's worried about what? Not being forgiven by Umar. So much so that he's coming to the masjid in this state and come to the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ sees him and says, "يغفر الله لك يا أبا بكر يغفر الله لك يا أبا بكر يغفر الله يا أبا بكر." He says, "May Allah forgive you, O Abu Bakr. May Allah forgive you, O Abu Bakr. May Allah forgive you, O Abu Bakr." So he asks Allah to forgive him. Then who comes into the masjid? Umar comes in, also in a frantic state. Why? Another narration. After he'd closed the door on Abu Bakr's face, what do you know? He began to regret. He felt guilty, and so he goes to the house of Abu Bakr to ask him to forgive him for not forgiving him, and his family say he's not here. He becomes concerned and worried, and then he comes to the masjid. Now he comes to the masjid, and look at this. He comes in and he sees Abu Bakr is sitting there, and he sees the Prophet ﷺ, and he says that I noticed that the Prophet ﷺ's face has changed, and it seems as though he's become angry. Yeah, and subhanAllah, the face of the Prophet ﷺ was always beaming like the full moon. So if he was upset, you could tell straight away. And so he says, I saw the Prophet ﷺ and he was clearly angry, and so I came and sat on his right hand side, and I gave him salams, and it seems as though the Prophet ﷺ was ignoring me. And so I got up and I went to the other side, and I sat down, and again I tried to speak to him, and he ignored me. And then he said, I sat right in front of him, and I said to him, "What good is there in my life if you ignore me?" SubhanAllah. At that, Abu Bakr becomes uneasy, uncomfortable at seeing Umar having to go through this, and he gets up on his knees. He stands on his knees, and he says to the Prophet ﷺ, "Wallahi ana kuntu azlama minhu." He says, "Oh Prophet ﷺ, I did twice as worse to him than what he did to me." Can you imagine? Now he's trying to intercede for Umar. He's saying, no, Prophet, don't worry about it. I was worse than him. I was worse than him. And now look at what the Prophet says. He says to everyone, he says, Abu Bakr was there for me when nobody was. And he, وَوَاسَانِي بِمَالِي وَنَفْسِي, and he supported me with his money and his own person in the beginning, when I said to all of you, believe in me, and you said, كَذَّبْتَ, he's lying. As for Abu Bakr, he was the only one who said, صَدَقْتَ, you have spoken the truth. And then he said, what is the matter with you? Will you not leave my companion Abu Bakr alone? Will you not leave my companion alone? He said it twice. And then after that, it is said, no one ever annoyed Abu Bakr after that day. SubhanAllah. Now this hadith in Sahih Bukhari, it teaches us so many amazing lessons. It teaches us first and foremost that the companions of the Prophet ﷺ were not angels. They were human beings. This is a moment of drama, isn't it? Happening in their life. Yeah, they have a falling out, an argument. Someone says something, he says, oh no, I shouldn't have said that. He goes to him, asks for forgiveness. He says, no, I'm not going to forgive you. I'm not going to forgive you. So what does this show us? It shows us that they were human beings. They had moments where, they slipped up, said some things which they didn't mean to. You see, Abu Bakr al-Siddeeq, why did he say what he said? He became angry. Now if you think about it, that's quite amazing. If Abu Bakr can become, if anger can get the better of Abu Bakr, can it not get the better of me and you? Of course. Yeah, of course. But the difference between them and us is three things. Number one, when they did slip up, it was rarely. As for us, it was frequently. May Allah forgive us. Secondly, when they did slip up, it was a minor slip up. As for many of us, our slip ups, may Allah forgive us, are major ones. Yeah. And thirdly, look at the reaction after they slip up. Imagine yourself, my brothers and sisters, in that situation. You have a falling out with maybe a family member. That happens, isn't it? You always have the uncle that no one speaks to, isn't it? Except on Eid day. Yeah, then you phone up. So you have these issues. You fall out with someone. But what do you do when you fall out with that person? As for Abu Bakr, when he fell out with somebody else, he literally moments later regretted. That's the first thing. That he regretted it inside. No, it wasn't right. Yeah. And then secondly, he rushed. Imagine, he didn't wait a day or a night to go and visit Umar the next day. He didn't say, let him cool down, I'll cool down, we'll wait. As for us, we say, maybe Eid day, I'll be forced to meet him and then I'll have to make things up. Yeah. He went the same day to Umar and asked for his forgiveness. Now look at this. See, if it was me or you, and we regretted, and we did go to the person and said, look, why don't you forgive us? Or maybe we'll WhatsApp the person, isn't it? We can't go to face to face. We just take the easy way, send a WhatsApp message. Akhi, sorry about what happened, yeah. Now, listen to this. If the response of that person was, you can forget, I'm not going to forgive you. What would we say? We say, khalas, we've done our duty. I've done more than enough. Or maybe we would say, yeah, it was good, I said it actually. Look what his reaction was, isn't it? SubhanAllah, after he's refused from Umar, he goes to the Prophet ﷺ and he said, I don't know what to do anymore. I don't know what to do. Why is he so stressed? Hasn't he done enough? Like, what is he worried about? He's worried that, if this person doesn't forgive me for what I did wrong to them, then maybe on Yawm al-Qiyamah, he will take some of my good deeds. And you know what? I cannot handle that. I cannot handle coming on Yawm al-Qiyamah and someone saying that, this person wronged me. And I'll do whatever it takes to try and get that person to forgive me. And that's an amazing lesson, isn't it? Yeah, may Allah make us like these people, subhanAllah. Okay, because of time, we move to the next. The next is, what is the greatest praise of Abu Bakr al-Siddeeq in the Quran? When after becoming Muslim, we'll mention a few stories. He was a great caller of Islam, a great da'i of Islam. And he would stop at nothing to call people to Islam. We'll speak about that inshallah. But one of the greatest praises that come of Abu Bakr in the Quran is regarding the hijrah. When he was with the Prophet ﷺ in the cave of Thawr. And this verse is revealed in Surah At-Tawbah, verse number 40, where Allah says, إِلَّا تَنْصُرُوهُ فَقَدْ نَصْرَهُ اللَّهُ إِذْ أَخْرَجَهُ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا ثَانِيَ اثْنَيْنِ إِذْ هُمَا فِي الْغَارِ إِذْ يَقُولُ لِصَاحِبِهِ لَا تَحْزَنْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ مَعَنَا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, if you do not help him, Allah did help him when the kuffar drove him out and there were two of them in the cave. He said to his companion, do not be despondent, Allah is with us. This verse, Allah calls Abu Bakr the sahib of the Prophet ﷺ. And Allah never called another man the companion of the Prophet ﷺ except for Abu Bakr al-Siddeeq. He is the only one who's called a companion of the Prophet ﷺ. إِذْ يَقُولُ لِصَاحِبِهِ. When he said, the Prophet said to his companion, to Abu Bakr al-Siddeeq, don't grieve. Don't grieve. Inna Allah ma'ana. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with us. And this is one of the greatest praises we find of Abu Bakr in the Quran, in Surah At-Tawbah. Now, a few stories here. Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu, when he became the Khalifa, he stood up and he did a khutbah. And in this khutbah, he said to his people, Akhbiruni, tell me, bi ashba'in nas. You tell me who is the most courageous of all people. And the people responded, you are. Yeah, they said, you are, O Ali. Ali radiallahu anhu responds, he said, I can take down my enemy and finish him off. But I'm asking you, who is the most courageous of all people? And people didn't know what to say. He said the most courageous of all of us was Abu Bakr al-Siddeeq radiallahu anhu. And he narrated an amazing story. And as he tells the story, he begins to cry. He says that once when we were in Mecca, that the Prophet ﷺ was praying. And then some of the enemies of Allah came to the Prophet ﷺ when he was in sajda, and they placed on his back some intestines of an animal. And Abu Bakr as-Siddeeq steps up to defend the Prophet ﷺ. And in defending him, what happened is that the people began to beat him. Yeah, they began to beat him. And Ali radiallahu anhu says, at that moment, no one stepped up to defend the Prophet ﷺ except for Abu Bakr as-Siddeeq. And they beat him really badly. And he kept on saying, أَتَقْتُلُونَ رَجُلًا أَن يَقُولَ رَبِّيَ اللَّهِ. He said to the people, are you going to kill a man simply because he says that my master is Allah? And he also mentioned a similar scenario in Badr. He said, when we erected the tent for the Prophet ﷺ at the battleground of Badr, people said, who will come forward to protect the Prophet ﷺ and be his security? He said, no one stepped forward. Because come on, this is the Prophet ﷺ. It is clear that all the enemies are going to go and try and attack him. It's difficult. And he said, no one stepped forward except for Abu Bakr. He came straight away and he had his sword unsheathed, walking back and forth and saying, whoever comes here will meet their death. Yeah, subhanallah. And so when he narrates this story, he begins to cry. He begins to cry and the people begin to cry. And then he says to them, this is the most courageous of all of us. It was Abu Bakr as-Siddeeq radiallahu anhu. As for the last story which I want to share with you, it is a similar story. This one's narrated by Aisha radiallahu anha. Okay, and she says that when the Muslims were 38 in number, so this is going back really early. You know, the first 3 years after the person becomes a prophet, there was a phase of da'wah which was private. Okay, some people say secret, but maybe the better word is private, because this is happening in stages. The first stage you're going to tell people privately, and then when you have a sizable force, you will take it public. And so this is the stage where it was private. There were only 38 Muslims. Abu Bakr comes to the Prophet ﷺ, and look at this. He says to the Prophet ﷺ, should we not make this call public? And the Prophet ﷺ says, Ya Abu Bakr, inna qaleel. He says, oh Abu Bakr, we are few in number. Yeah, look at the Prophet ﷺ. Why did he say we are few in number? Because he has a plan. He has a plan. When we reach a certain number, that is when we move to the next stage. Yeah, he's not just doing da'wah just like this. He has a plan. So he says, no, we're only few in number. Don't. Abu Bakr as-Siddeeq persists in trying to persuade the Prophet ﷺ, until one day they come out to the Kaaba, and the Prophet ﷺ is going to be present when Abu Bakr does what he does. Then he tells the Muslims, go and disperse in the area around the Haram and sit with your clan, your sub-clan, sit with your family members. And then when they were sitting, Abu Bakr as-Siddeeq stands up and he starts to deliver a khutbah. This is the first khutbah of Islam. The first khutbah was done by Abu Bakr al-Siddeeq. And he calls people to Islam, and then the Quraysh stand up and they run towards him. They start to beat him. They start to beat him, and then it is said that they beat him so bad. And then another man, Utbah ibn Rabi'ah, a particularly wicked man, he took off his shoes and he started to beat Abu Bakr on the head and the face, until it is said حتى ما يعرف وجهه من أنفه. Subhanallah. It said that he was beaten so bad that you couldn't tell his face from his nose. There was so much blood all over his face. He falls unconscious on the floor, motionless, and then the people begin to back off. And then his tribesmen from Banu Taym, they come through the crowd. They're very angry. And they say, Wallahi, if Abu Bakr dies, we are going to kill Utbah for what he did. But he wasn't dead. They spread out a sheet and they put him on that sheet and they picked him up and they took him back home where his mother was. His mother, Salma binti Sakhr, was not a Muslim right now. She cares for him. She helps him. And when he comes back to consciousness, what is the first thing he says? He says, "Ma fa'ala Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam." What has happened to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Can you imagine? After waking up from such a beating, the first thing on his mind is the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now his mother wasn't a Muslim, and so she says, "I don't know where he is." Then he calls for another family member, Sulaym, who was a Muslim. She comes and they speak in hushed tones because he doesn't want and she doesn't want to say things which are going to jeopardize the Prophet ﷺ. And so Abu Bakr says to her in a way which is a bit indirect, "Where is the Prophet ﷺ?" And she says, "You know, your mother, she can hear." Abu Bakr says, "It doesn't matter if she can hear or not. فَأَيْنَ هُوَ? Where is he?" And she says, "He is in the house of" who? Abu al-Arqam. Abu al-Arqam, Dar Abu al-Arqam, right? Which is where the Muslims would go in the early days. And so he calls people to pick him up and take him on their shoulders to the Prophet ﷺ. Then he enters into the house of Abu al-Arqam and the Prophet ﷺ stands up and quickly moves towards him. And he kisses Abu Bakr al-Siddeeq. And he says, "What happened?" Abu Bakr says, "Oh, this is nothing except for what that wicked man did to my face. I want to know, how are you?" Subhanallah. And then the Prophet ﷺ, in speaking to him, Abu Bakr says to him, "My mother, Ya Rasulullah, she has not embraced Islam. Please make dua for her." Can you imagine? He's thinking about everyone except for himself. And the Prophet makes a dua for his mother. And then his mother is brought. And the Prophet speaks to her and she becomes Muslim. She embraces Islam. And this story, subhanAllah, is amazing because it not only teaches us how passionate Abu Bakr was in calling other people to Islam, but it also teaches us that the one who sacrifices for the sake of Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bring much barakah into his life. To the extent that even his family members will be touched by that blessing, isn't it? That the mother of Abu Bakr al-Siddeeq, she in the end becomes Muslim through this ordeal that Abu Bakr al-Siddeeq goes through. And it really teaches us, subhanAllah, that if we are true believers in Allah and we serve His religion, then much goodness will come to us in our lives. Yeah, and many times in our brothers and sisters, we find our parents, they're not that practicing. Okay, and this is a dilemma for us. This is Abu Bakr, his mother is not even Muslim. Okay, but Allah blessed his mother with Islam because of the da'wah of the son, the sacrifice of the son. Yeah, and this shows us that we should ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide our parents and our family members, all of them, to Islam. But one of the things that brings them closer to Allah is our own closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yeah. So inshallah, this brings us to the end of this. هذا وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Inshallah, next week we'll speak about one or two things that happened in Makkah also, and then the migration to Medina, and then some of the achievements in Medina, inshallah. جزاكم الله خير. مبارك الله فيكم.
الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. لقد كان في يوسف وإخوته آيات للسائلين إذ قالوا ليوسف وأخوه أحب إلى أبينا منا ونحن عصبة إن أبانا لفي ضلال مبين اقتلوا يوسف أو اطرحوه أرضا يخل لكم وجه أبيكم وتكونوا من بعده قوما صالحين قال قائل منهم لا تقتلوا يوسف وألقوه في غيابة الجب يلتقطه بعض السيارة إن كنتم فاعلين قالوا يا أبانا ما لك لا تأمنا على يوسف وإنا له لناصحون أرسله معنا غدا يرتع ويلعب وإنا له لحافظون قال إني ليحزنني أن تذهبوا به وأخاف أن يأكله الذئب وأنتم عنه غافلون قالوا لئن أكله الذئب ونحن عصبة إنا إذا لخاسرون فلما ذهبوا به وأجمعوا أن يجعلوه في غيابة الجب وأوحينا إليه لتنبئنهم بأمرهم هذا وهم لا يشعرون فلما ذهبوا به وأجمعوا أن يجعلوه في غيابة الجب وأوحينا إليه لتنبئنهم بأمرهم هذا وهم لا يشعرون وجاءوا أباهم عشاء يبكون قالوا يا أبانا إنا ذهبنا نستبق وتركنا يوسف عند متاعنا فأكله الذئب وما أنت بمؤمن لنا ولو كنا صادقين وجاءوا على قميصه بدم كذب قال بل سولت لكم أنفسكم أمرا فصبر جميل والله المستعان على ما تصفون.